Okay, y'all. His attempt number 3 to record this episode. I had a little technical difficulties, but I'm back. This is hopefully the last final attempt to record this episode, but we still gonna have fun with it, y'all. We still are going to have fun with it because, man, this is what we here for, man. I don't care that we had to record it 2 other times. This is going to be the best time, and this is going to be the final time recording it because 3 is a magic number. Shout out to Schoolhouse Rock. And man, we're gonna get into the episode tonight. We are talking about embracing duality. Embracing duality. This is I guess you could say this is connected to the episode last week on balance, and we are still in the education over shame series. So everything we're talking about, we are educating you guys. If you aren't already on this topic, you may want to get in on this. You may want to listen to this a few times. And yeah, we're going to get into the episode now. Welcome back to Before the Fame podcast. This is your host, Jordan. And tonight we have a very good topic for you guys. This is something that we talked a little bit about last week. One of my special guests, Martiana, brought this topic up, and I felt the need to go further in depth on this topic because there's things that occurred in my lifetime that it made me have to embrace duality. It made me have to embrace both my light and my dark, right? Because if I didn't, then I would just live in delusion. And I'm the type of person, I don't like living in delusion. I don't like to give other people that thought process because I feel like in the end it's going to hurt you, right? You have to embrace the good with the bad. You have to take the good with the bad, right? So before we get into that, I do want to give a quick shout out to the author of this book, The Year of Letting Go, right? Because when we talk about balance, when we talk about getting to that point of, feeling like we're balanced, there's a lot of things that we have to let go of. And this book I bought this past year, 2024, and I've been reading it since. And every day that I get up, or not every day, but most of the days that I get up, I try to look at, something that I could learn from. And I just wanted to read this from this day on March 15th. You are not your past. Be here, be present, be more. And I felt like that was very relevant to what we're talking about tonight because things that happened in the past, the people that you were in contact with or in connection with, those people aren't necessarily here with you now, or even if they are here with you now, it's time for us to be present, right? It's time for us to think about what's happening right now, what's serving us right now. And it's just best for us to let go of those things in order for us to create room for balance, right? So tonight's episode, again, is about embracing duality. And some of us, again, have a hard time doing this because we want to just accept the good, or some of us want to just embrace the negativity that goes on into our lives and completely ignore the positive things that happen, right? And for those people, I would say that when you get into a situation where you have to embrace that other side, there are times where you will feel the need to go back to your old self, right? There are times where you will want to react before listening, or you might want to, act out of fear and all of those things. And I would tell you that it's best that you gather as much information as you can embrace those connections that you have, because when it's gone, right? You can't go back. You can't try to do over the things that you wanted to do or say the things that you wanted to say. Those times are gone, right? So this is why when we talk about embracing duality, it's all about being present. It's all about making sure that you are taking that good and you're taking that bad, and you're not living in the past, but you're working in the present and you're looking ahead. So, first topic that we're going to get into, we'll talk about these dualities, is the crown chakra, right? Because we got into this last week when talking to Martiana. She did a reading for us, me and my brother, and we talked about certain chakras that we needed to work on. And those chakras, again, it all connects to each other, right? So when we starting out with the crown chakra, we're talking about the top, we're talking about the things that go into our mind, our, basically the crown, right? So when we're talking about this, we're basically going to tell ourselves that I am one with all, right? And now remember, I'm telling you that all of this is connected. So some of this stuff may be repeated. You may feel like you're listening to it all over again. But I am one with all. I receive divine guidance, right? And when we're talking about the crown, this is basically paired with wisdom. We're talking about stuff that we're certain about versus the humility that we face when we don't have an understanding or a full understanding on a certain topic, right? So wisdom entails a balance of confidence in what we know, paired with the humility to learn more and admit that we're not finished learning or growing, right? Because in those times of learning things, you have to understand that there's going to be times where you make mistakes. There's going to be times where you're not perfect, right? And there's times where you have to go through those growing pains in order for you to get to that next step, right? And that's, in a nutshell, how we can embrace our duality, right? So we understand that, okay, we have a certain knowledge on particular topics, and then we have certain topics that we're unsure about, we need to learn more for or learn more about. And that's real simple in theory, right? But when we actually have to apply these things, it can be difficult for a lot of people. And I know for me, it was difficult, in my first, I would say, 20 years of life. But these past 9.5 years, I would say I would move more out of humility than certainty, right? And for some people, they wouldn't understand that. They would think that my confidence is shot. But for me, it was just about the fact that I had learned so much more from my connections with people than from my own understanding of what was going on, right? So a lot of people taught me, how to navigate this thing we call life. And I couldn't just say that I did it all on my own. So that is the crown chakra. And we are basically just balancing the certainties of life with the humility that comes with it, right? So that's number one. Number two is the third eye chakra, right? Third eye chakra is something that I used to say that my third eye was up here, but then I had to realize that I was moving with my heart, right? I was moving with this instead of up here. And when I do that, I see that there's a lot of things that, certain people wouldn't see. It's the same way when you talk about the inner vision, there's certain people that don't see your vision versus what you see, right? But when I was moving with my heart, there were things that it would hurt me more than it would hurt other people, right? And in that same breath, it's like I had a lot of empathy for people as well. And, that's going to get into the next one. But when we talk about the third eye, we're basically saying that I see beyond what's visible, right? So I'm seeing beyond this physical world. I'm seeing beyond what I can see visibly. And I'm trusting my inner vision, right? So I trust what my thoughts are telling me. I'm trusting my instincts. I'm trusting all of these things versus what my physical eyes are showing me, right? And now one of the things that I want to say before I get into this is that we talk about, trusting or not trusting our own understanding, not leaning on our own understanding. And it goes back to that whole topic of us seeking wisdom, right? We have to seek wisdom in order for us to be counted as wise, right? And that whole thing is, again, it falls back to there's certain things that we're certain about that we know is going to happen to us, and then there's certain things that we don't know that's going to happen that we may be humbled upon discovery. Then now it's like it takes our inner vision to see our way through it, right? It takes that wisdom that we collected, that we either chosen to internalize or we just chose to ignore. And now, again, now that you have that experience, now you can say, hey, I've been through this situation. I've been through that situation, right? Now you can teach that vision to someone else, right? So it's all about balancing bold action versus the times where we can sit back and listen, times that we can or seek the answers from other people, or we can just allow things to unfold, right? There's certain things that we just have to allow to unfold in order for us to get past it, right? So that is the third eye. And now the next one that we're going to talk about is the throat chakra, right? The throat chakra is basically saying that I speak my truth. My voice creates reality. So everything that I speak to the world, this is what is creating my reality, right? And when I think about this one, I think about the creation of the Brunch Lovers Club. And this was all the way back in 2020. For those of you that don't know, I created this club back in 2020 with a friend. We were out, and I was telling her about how I wish that we were able to connect more, because it had been years since we had talked, and all the things that had transpired in between, it was just like, it was so much that we had to fill each other in on, that we just decided, hey, why don't we just do this, more often, right? And again, it all started with me just sending messages out to people and being a little vague about things. I had to change my approach to us going out and us doing things, because a lot of people just misconstrued what was happening, right? They wanted to understand it, but I wasn't being more vocal about what I wanted. I wasn't more understanding of other people's situations, because I was just coming from living in my friend's house, right? I was living with my friend's Brandon, and I just had more time on my hands, right? I had more time to reconnect with people, and other people, they just had life going on. So for me, again, it just came with me being vocal, speaking my truth, speaking from where I was coming from, and how I was able to get out of that into the space that I'm in now, where a lot more people are trying to see what's going on, or they try to see, what they can do to help and all of that stuff. And while I invite this stuff to each and every brunch, I'm always open to ideas. I'm also rooted in my solitude, right? So this is where we talk about the creativity, because the things that I created through Brunch Lovers was for my community, for the world to see that we don't have to sit back and wait, right? We don't have to sit back and be those people that wait until something happens to us. We can create our own community. We can do things when we want to do it, right? And sometimes it is about sit back, right? It is about letting things unfold, like I said before, because we don't control the weather, we don't control traffic, we don't control how busy a certain establishment is. All we can do is show up for ourselves and for our community. So for us, again, it's just about that balance of solitude and being on our own versus connections with other people that, it may not be your friend that you hang out with all the time, but it may be a stranger. It may be some of your family members. Somewhere along the lines, you have to understand that the connections that you make with the people that you meet, it matters just as much as your solitude, right? Just as much as you want to be alone and you want to do things on your own, that connection that you make with other people, it matters too. So this is why when I do go out, I send invitations to whomever is interested, right? It's not just for my friends. It's not just for a certain group of people. I want to connect with those who seek connection as well, right? Those who value solitude just as much as connection. Those are the people that I invite out to my brunches, and those are the people that I have the best times with, right? We go out, we have good times, we make memories, we take photos, we do all types of things that when we were younger, it's like we wanted to do these things, but we just didn't have the money to do these things, or some of us didn't have the time to do these things, or maybe we had too much time. But getting people together nowadays is more fulfilling for me, because not only are you making the commitment, not only are you setting aside the time, but you're also saying, hey, I value your connection just as much as you value my connection. And those are the people I appreciate. Anybody that has come out to a brunch either this year, last year, in the past 5 years, I appreciate everything that you've done for me. I appreciated the connections that we've made, and I want to make more connections. So, next one is the heart chakra, right? So when we talk about the heart chakra, this is basically saying that I give and receive love freely, right? So we're receiving and giving love freely, and we're also leading with compassion, right? Because for me, that was one of the things that, like I said before, I used to lead with my heart, right? I used to be the person that was very empathetic. I would listen to my friends' problems. I would just be that person that people call on, and I could give advice in a particular situation, even if I wasn't in it, if I didn't, play a part in it or anything. I was that person that, people came to and talked to and, basically grounded themselves in. And, as I got older, I realized that I didn't have too many people that I called on for that type of love. And it's not that I wanted too many people for it. I noticed that people had their own lives, they had their own things going on, and the times that I would reach out to people, I wouldn't necessarily get a response in the time that I needed. So, and the people that, responded to me, in a timely fashion, I appreciated that. I appreciated everything that we talked about, the love that was poured into me, because now, again, as a man who has been through heartbreak, who's been through betrayal, who's been through all of these traumatic things, I don't necessarily weigh that as a reason to not love, right? I don't put that as my barrier for loving others. I actually made myself more open to, better types of love, right? And the thing that we talk about when we get into this is the fact that love can either heal us or it can hurt us, right? When we open ourselves up to love and true love, right? We're not talking about manipulation. We're not talking about control, dominance, submission. We're talking about true love, unconditional love. It opens us to healing. It opens us to all the goodness that comes with love, right? And if you need a direct, more clear version of what love is, please go read Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. It's going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about, because a lot of people misconstrued it, right? A lot of people say that this is love, that's love. But if it's not patient, if it's not kind, and I don't know what else you want to say. Like, I don't know how you want to spin it, but those verses right there can tell you what the type of love that I'm talking about. Because, again, a love that you seek is not necessarily unconditional love, right? We have to find out for ourselves. Sometimes we have to get hurt. Sometimes we got to go through heartbreak. But in those times, it's like, okay, what did I learn from this? What can I take from this? Is this something that hurt me in order to build me? Or is this something that healed me from a lot of other things that I went through in my past? And for me, my latest relationship was a very, very, very eye-opening experience for me, because although it hurt, how things played out, although there's things that I wish could have went differently, I also embraced the fact that it happened, right? I embraced the fact that I no longer am hurting her through what I was doing. My actions weren't necessarily lining up with what I was saying. And, for some men, they aren't ready to acknowledge these things. They're not ready to apologize for, hurting someone, or just not necessarily living up to expectations, right? And it's okay to admit that you're not that person's person, right? Like, I think that one of the things that we all, battle with is acceptance, period, first and foremost. But accepting that we are not someone's person, right? That's a tough thing to ask or to deal with, because now you have to reevaluate. You have to reflect on the things that you did, the things that you said, the people that you came into contact with. Because if things happened differently, maybe you could have been in a better position, but they happened the way that they did happen for you to learn. You have to be able to accept the good with the bad, right? You have to be able to accept the fact that your love may have done more hurting than healing, right? Your love may have been the very factor that most people don't want to deal with you, right? And that's okay. Like, you have to accept these things so that you can say, all right, I was the problem. Now I can go work on these things. Now I can go work on my heart, right? And that's all that this is about, right? You have to realize when it's time to work on yourself, when it's time to love other people, because there's a time for all of this stuff. And you have to recognize when other people are trying to heal from things too. So basically, again, when we're talking about the duality of the heart chakra, is that love can hurt us or heal us depending on if we are moving out of unconditional love or acting with unconditional love, or if we are moving or if it's attached to our fears and approval that we seek from other people, then we already know we're going to be led to that hurt. We're going to be led to betrayal, all of these things that we don't want to feel in the first place. So that is the heart chakra. Now, the next one is the solar plexus, right? The solar plexus chakra is basically saying that I act with courage, I trust myself, right? So when we're talking about this is more so dealing with the confidence that we either exhibit or we restrain, right? So it's boldness versus restraint, because in our times of acting or action, we have to realize that sometimes when we sit back and we allow things to unfold, that can tell us way more about a situation than just acting boldly on it, right? When we do things just off the sheer instinct of, hey, I need to move, sometimes we get caught up in, hey, I moved too fast, or I moved too far, or I did it at the wrong times, right? So this is why, again, we have to find that balance between the inner fire that burns within us and that quiet grace that we can give to other people in order for us to restore that balance within us. Because everything that we do is not necessarily based on how bold we can be or how quickly we can act. Sometimes, again, it's just about giving grace to people. Sometimes it's just about being kind to people, allowing people to come to their own conclusions, so that when we do act, it's not just out of the limb or on the limb from, hey, I just need to act, I need to move, and all of these things, right? Because we don't want to just move off of our emotions or move off of our feelings. Sometimes, again, we just need to take some time back, give grace to ourselves, because, again, we don't know everything, right? We have to have that balance of, all right, we're certain about this, but humility does play a factor too. Grace plays a factor too. So just allowing ourselves to lead without dominating, that's very huge, right? We have to know that domination is not the way to balance, right? You acting as if you're better than everyone or that you're over everyone, you're never going to be at balance, right? You're never going to have that balance, that peace that you seek, if you seek it. But when you realize, like, hey, I can lead without dominating, when you are able to believe in yourself without dominating others, that is where you have that balance of the solar plexus chakra. And you also realize that your power can illuminate or it can consume you, right? So that's a big one. And now the next one is the sacral chakra, right? The sacral chakra, this is basically saying that I feel deeply, I connect honestly, and I honor desire, right? So the key word there is desire, because when we are talking about the sacral chakra, there's things that we pair with this, and the one word that I'm going to use for this is intimacy, right? Intimacy is one thing that when I created the Brunch Lovers Club, I was at first seeking that connection with people, that intimacy that I was longing for, and I had to realize that I had been by myself and to myself for so long that there was a lot of other people that were going through these things, but they weren't necessarily moving how I was moving, right? And I thought of myself, I had a lot more freedom than a lot of people. So this is why with this topic, this is a balance between autonomy and togetherness, right? So when we think about intimacy, right, there's a lot of things that people, want to include on intimacy, And for men, a lot of us leave out the emotional intimacy that comes with it too, right? We think of all the physical things that we can do, or some of us, just think of it as a physical act, but there's an emotional intimacy and spiritual as well that we have lost touch of. And this is why this episode is important to me. This is why I don't mind having to do this 3-4 times, because talking about this, I learned something from it each time. I learned the fact that, hey, I don't know about certain topics. I don't know about everything, but when I talk about it, when I listen to it again, I gain more and more understanding of what balance truly is, right? And it's all about, again, light and the darkness being integrated, so that when we do get into these situations, we don't just say, hey, I know about this, right? I'm confident in that, right? We have to learn how to work with what we know and what we think we can work on or learn more about, so that when we do get to that point, all right, now I'm whole, right? Now I'm a person that chooses this intimacy with this person, or you choose to be intimate with this group or whoever. And you're doing it out of place of desire. You're not doing it because you need it or you're in desperation, for it. You're doing it because you're a whole person. You've healed from things that have been done to you or been said about you, and is out of desire. And again, this is why when we talk about togetherness, when we talked about the Brunch Lovers Club, that was my whole point for creating it, right? I wanted to make something that we all can do together, and also embrace our autonomy, right? I didn't want to make it to where when people come out for me, that's all they could be focused on, right? Everyone has their own autonomy. Everyone has their freedom to do what they want. And I wasn't mad at it, right? I wasn't the person that was just going to put you in a certain group or in a certain class. Everyone has their freedom, but we also are doing things together if we are on the same page with something. And that was just something that was big for me, because like I said, there was a lot of times where I was just on my own out here, and I didn't necessarily like it. I grew to like going out on my own, but that's for a whole nother reason. But now I feel like I do things purposefully on my own. I do things for myself, but I also like doing things together as a group. I like to, put myself in the shoes of other people who necessarily want to create that community for themselves, because I was that person, right? I was that person who wanted this responsibility on my shoulders. And now that I have it, I can't be upset with people who choose their autonomy over being together, or people who would rather be together than, choosing their autonomy, right? Like, it's all about balance at the end of the day. So that is the sacral chakra. And the final chakra that we're going to talk about is the root chakra, right? The root chakra is basically stating that I am safe, I belong, I am rooted in truth, right? So all of this sounds very, self-explanatory, but we're still going to get into it. So this one is going to be paired with grounding, right? So when we're grounded, when we're rooted in things, again, we can choose to have the light over here that we're rooted in, or we can choose to be rooted in our shadow, or we can have that balance of the two, right? And when we have that balance, we realize that, hey, I have balance in my movement. I am centered even when I shift somewhere else, right? And the best example that I can talk about this with you with is skating, right? One of my favorite things to do, one of my hobbies is skating. And for people that see me skate, I get a lot of people that talk about, hey, I haven't skated in a while, I haven't done this, or I haven't done that. I want to learn how to. And my first thing to them is to just learn about balance, right? Because that's all it is. You balancing on one foot, balancing your weight, shifting. Because again, when we do get off balance, the scary part of it is the fact that you might fall, for some people. And other people are so used to falling that it's not even scary anymore, right? For me, it's not scary to fall anymore because I have that experience and I put myself in positions to where I don't even necessarily have to think about it, right? Like, and it's not that I just don't fall anymore, right? I still fall when I go out and I skate, but it's more so a mental thing for those who do think about it, or if that's a fear of yours. It's very mental versus the physical aspect of falling, because you realize that, hey, you don't want to embarrass yourself, you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. And that to me was the fun part of it, right? Me learning the movements, me learning that, hey, I may not know what I'm doing out here, but I'm around people who do know what they're doing, and I learn from their movements. I learn from my own mistakes, and I realized how to create that balance, right? I realized that, hey, this foot may be stronger than this foot, so let me work on this foot more, right? And that's all it is, right? When we're working on ourselves, when we're trying to root ourselves in, whether it's the light or the shadow, we have to understand that you can't accept one and not accept the other, right? We have to embrace duality. And for me, this is all this has been about. These episodes, this series, when we're talking about balance, we have to embrace that light and that dark, integrate it, and understand that both of them are working towards a certain goal, right? Or a certain path. It's all in us to either accept it or ignore it, right? But that doesn't change the fact that it's happening. That doesn't change the fact that these things exist, right? And for me, again, this whole topic is opening up so many more conversations. I don't want to get too deep into it tonight because this is, my third time recording this. And for those of you who are still listening right now, I appreciate you. You made it this far. I'm going to let you go now, but this is the episode on embracing duality. Next week, we're going to get even further into the balance and how we can achieve balance through our masculinity and femininity. And man, I just appreciate you guys for listening. I appreciate everyone who supported me on this journey. But this is Before the Fame, and we will be back next week with another episode. Thank you.